Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you have a self and you haven't discovered it, that puts you in the category of the undiscovered self.
The undiscovered self, Alexander McCaig.
1957, our...
Mr. Jung.
Yeah, Mr. Jung, our famous Swiss-German psychologist, social psychologist, quite frankly, who talked about the material sense of psychology, and Jason just had up in front of the camera, the material sense of psychology, but also the immaterial sense, more of like the metaphysical aspect. So it's not really the external environment that's having the influence, but more of an internal environment within the self.
Yeah, and I love how, especially in this, the Undiscovered Self book, how he starts off at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, he says, what will the future bring?
That's a great question.
That's the first thing he
but I think
starts off with a question.
If you ask, like, what will the future bring? First of all, this book was written in 1957. It was still at the height of the Cold War. But in that context of the self, if you think about that, it's almost like pondering your death. Like, what will the future bring?
What will the future bring?
If you know for certain that you are, in fact, going to die, but you continue to ignore it, that prevents you from making more positively oriented evolutive choices right now with how you interact with yourself and others, how you think about yourself and others. So what will the future bring is a question that almost one should ponder not only of the external world, but one of your internal. Mm-hmm. Will the future bring me knowledge? Will it bring me joy and happiness?
But people have to understand, and the future is bringing you death.
Yeah, but it's not.
Period.
But it's not like
you're not gonna like. Everybody thinks that there. I mean, how many you have the Google exec spending billions of dollars? One of them trying to find what immortality is. You have all these animals that, you have like lobsters live forever unless they get captured and they just get bigger and bigger. You have certain animals that, and so they're like, hey, well, let's dive into that, and which is great. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll live to 150. You're still going to die at 150.
You're still going to die at 150.
Your future is death.
Yeah. So like all things given enough time rust.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So time is the great equalizer. I love that. That's why they would depict the planet Saturn as this thing that was like biting off the heads of its children, right? And all these other, weird mythological nuances, because that is that equalizer. In the end, there is that death.
And
anything material.
And this is why I hate, that's a strong word.
That's a really strong word. I actually corrected you in my mind and you just picked up on that. So go ahead.
But I want to use a strong word because it leads people down a very sad road, is a lot of this positive psychological nuances that we picked up from the 1960s on, in the sense of if you can just think positive, be great. No. You're going against cause and effect. You're going against all the creational laws when you're doing that.
Fucking man, you're on that.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean?
So your subconscious. So let me explain something here. Your subconscious is perfectly logical. Perfectly. The only thing that is unlogical is our conscious thoughts.
Right.
We choose to distort things. But if you didn't have a totally rational, logical subconscious, you would never try and, keep yourself alive in a moment of fear. You would never be able to walk in a straight line. You would never be able to make decisions for the physiological livelihood of the self without the subconscious being completely logical. So now let's talk about if you were in a state of mental
distress,
right? And then you're like, and then you only want to think positive thoughts because that's what someone's telling you.
Affirmations,
all these things. But what you're doing is you're essentially sending a lie down to the subconscious. The subconscious knows you're out of balance. And then by affirming positive thoughts constantly, which are untrue, because something untrue is illogical, then that only further deepens the sort of distress or disease within the mind or the consciousness that you're currently receiving.
Well, it gets even worse than that, because the evolutionary side of who you are knows the fight or flight. Your parasympathetic nervous system knows this.
Good for you.
So whenever you're lying to yourself, you're going against this evolutionary process that is there to say, hey, there's a cheetah in front of you,
which is a perfectly logical process.
You need to run up the tree or whatever. That, like you said, that, I mean, but let's say whatever it may be, you're fixing to lose your job, and you can sense that and feel that everybody's not talking to you. The main leaders, your boss has been kind of, you're going to have that conversation.
Correct.
So you can go home and be like, you know what? I'm going to be positive about this.
I'm just going to lie to myself about the very blatant truth that's sitting in front of me.
I'm going to make an affirmation that I do exceedingly well at my work, and I give 110%.
Yeah.
So then you flip. Now you're being fake at work.
Mm-hmm.
Fake it till you make it.
Yep.
So now you're walking around and, hey, Jim, how are you? I'm just so positive today.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but deep down inside of you, this is the disconnect with this bullshit psychology. Deep down inside of you, you know that imminent danger is coming. Your
course.
body knows that.
And so and then when you lie about it, you're doubling down on that negative energy.
Yes.
And even though you're walking around positive, it's a farce.
Yes.
And so you have that this discoherent aura that you're just exuding. You have this auric stench. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you're just diseasing yourself internally further than you need to be. You're actually moving further away from knowing yourself, the knowledge of who you are by doing this. You're creating an illness to yourself.
Yeah. And then you have the other extreme where you have Buddhism, and then our Christianity has this to the point too, where, you know, you should be a martyr and just, you know, love suffering.
Well, then that's just completely unbalanced on the other side.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than going in and being like, I need to think positive all the time, or I got to take the negative martyr stance because this will solve it, equalize the thought. Actually change your focus away from that specific thing and just take an appreciative view to other things in the world. Oh, I'm very appreciative of this job. Oh, isn't it a beautiful day? Oh, I really enjoy the color of that specific thing. So what it does is you're not lying to yourself. You're not putting a positive affirmation on something where you're in a negative disease state within within your psychological self. And that allows you to equalize those energies by putting the focus on something that is true and logical from a strictly observant point, objective point.
Yeah, and if you want, like, putting into that job situation, love and light, service to others, so you know that this is going to happen. You're not lining up culturally with, you know, and you can sense all of this. So let me be proactive in this. Let me understand. I know what's going to happen. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go find another job. And then before they fire me, I'm going to have a conversation with my boss and sit him down and say, hey, I know this isn't working out. I've already found another job. I just want you to know, you know, I really appreciated working here. Really I enjoyed you specifically. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, because he gave you a paycheck, whether you like him or not.
Correct.
You know, I mean, you traded your time for money, and he gave you that money on time.
So be objective about that.
Yes, exactly.
And that's a
and so now you're
thing.
being proactive.
Yes.
Now you took the burden away, because your service to others. Now you took the burden away from him to have to fire you, because you're just waiting for the inevitable.
Correct.
And being reactive instead of proactive.
And then you start to internally spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And what you thought by listening to these, you know, new age people being like, oh, think positive, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, exactly.
You're actually creating more distress within the self. And once you have these states of disease within the consciousness, then the sympathetic nervous system begins to pick up on it. And then from that carries over into the certain cellular activity and strains those cells within the body. It actually creates oxidative stress within the self. Mm-hmm. And then from that leads to certain types of organ failures.
Yes.
Or other physiological disease outside of the one that comes from the state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So those thoughts can have an effect on the physiological body.
But it prevents, and this is the biggest part, it prevents you from logically, and you talked about this earlier, but it prevents you from logically thinking. It's like if I'm 4'11", you know, I'm 6'2", but if I'm 4'11", I want to make sure we clarify this.
Thank you for clarifying your dwarfism.
But if I'm 4'11",
yeah,
and I'm going to think as positive I can, and I'm going to work out 8-hour days, I'm going to devote my time to being in the NBA, and I'm 4'11". Evolutionary process, you're not making it into the. There's no way you could be on an NBA team and help out, and, you know, go get them water or something.
Yeah,
or get into physical therapy.
Sure,
you know, you could be on an NBA team.
You could serve in other ways.
But no matter what you do, no matter how much you dedicate yourself, evolution tells you, no, you're not going to be able to.
It's not your gig.
Yeah, it's like me. You know, when I was.
How high is the basketball hoop up?
Yeah,
like
it's 10 feet.
It's not designed for short people.
No,
the game by design, that system.
Yes.
If you put it into a statistical system, you as an outlier cannot operate within that algorithm of basketball.
Yeah, there we go. Operate within the algorithm. Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense? It's naturally the design of the court, the system, and the rules are self-limiting to people that are actually of a shorter stature.
So let me ask you this. So whenever we're looking, because we'll go back to Carl Jung, whenever we're looking at that question of the future, and then we begin to mold this idea of who our self is, implementing these creational laws, now that begins to give us a logical outcome of who we could, who we are, because we have a full self-awareness and understanding of that.
Right.
And then if we look to future, what we will become through that process.
Correct.
Now the path becomes extremely clear.
And it doesn't, like we've said before, it doesn't have to be muddied. We're the one that muddy the water. The water would otherwise be clear. We're the one that's all chaotic, stirring it up, raking the ocean with these huge trolling nets. Like, that's what we're doing. But apart from that, it just wants to be clear. It wants to be efficient. And so by focusing on that end point and realizing what the future beholds for you,
Right.
or at least contemplating upon that specific thing, will help you make better decisions now to learn about the self, learn about who you are.
Yeah, because he says historically it is chiefly, this is what he said, it is chiefly in times of physical, political, economic, and spiritual distress that men's eyes turn with anxious hope to the future.
Correct. So we've talked about those before. In times of suffering and stress, it's when people want to look at the future and also need to find out the truth within themselves. Because finding that truth in yourself helps stabilize that anxiety of the future.
But like this is a problem I have with Buddhism in the sense of why are you looking to the future and being reactive to suffering? Why does it take you? Because you want to have equilibrium and balance, right?
Correct.
We want to have negative and positive polarities in our life, and we want
Yes.
to be balanced out. So why do I have to be reactive and wait for a chain of events to happen before I start to look? Because he uses your eyes. Before I start to look, and that can be symbolically to a lot of things. So I start to see the path that I need to take for the future. Why can't I daily be active in that process of understanding what my future could behold?
That's a fantastic question.
And then I can keep that equilibrium and balance.
But the thing is, if I take that Buddhist view, I can pass off responsibility until that point comes.
Yeah.
I don't have to. If I don't really focus on it, right, and I don't take the moment right now to do what needs to be done to create that better outcome in the future, I can just nihilistically wait until that point actually occurs, pass off responsibility, and then just take whatever I get at that point.
Well, it's the Buddhist monk, the Vietnam Buddhist monk. He gave his own self.
Well, he took the martyr position.
He said, I'm going to suffer the most for this world outcome.
But it's not even suffering the most. You've actually limited your suffering to the 20 minutes which you choose to burn in the street. Suffering's over at that point. What are you talking about? You're suffering the most. You just ended suffering. And then you actually limited the probabilities of you evolving further and getting to know yourself and then share that knowledge of knowing. Instead, you've actually taken from the world through that martyr stance that evolutive process and sharing that with other people that are going through their same evolutive process.
Yeah, and it's there we go. And we talked about this yesterday, and we encourage our sponsor, Tartle.co. We encourage you to listen to our TCAST episodes if you're interested in technology. You can subscribe Spotify, Apple, all of that. Just type in Tartle TCAST, TCAST. But we talked about this yesterday in when we were getting into climate stability and environmental, and we were saying, what if somebody is the CEO of Coca-Cola?
Sure.
And we know that Coke is causing lots of. I mean, I wish they had the real Coke back in the day with the cocaine in it. That's what it
actually
came from.
doing something.
They weren't actually like.
It was actually doing something.
But do you quit? Do you quit? Or do you make the decision to say, hey, I'm going to decide to stay here in this position and then use that influence, even though it may be limited, I can still use the influence. That's a decision that you have to ruminate in your mind and make that decision or not. Because whenever you can go to the extreme and quit, now what do you have? You're unemployed.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
you go to the extreme and quit. Now look, you have no life. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Quit
Or
life.
you burn yourself in the street.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You burn yourself in the street.
But this is the problem that we have whenever we start getting into this negative or positive polarization when we begin to think of the future.
Yeah.
Because the future to me always brings anxiety to people. When they start thinking about the future, they get anxious.
Why? Because what they're doing is they're carrying a fear and anxiety they have now through a lack of self-awareness and knowledge and empirical observation of their world and creational laws. They're taking that lack of self-awareness and they're carrying it into the future.
Right.
What you're doing is you're assuming the same causal states that are happening here with how you think in your mindset is brought forward into the future. So you're carrying this anxiety there, and then that's all you're going to ever feel is anxiety.
Yeah, and you can see it. He mentions it. He says in times of physical. So like, we always think of our meat suits, even though they're temporary, but like, I have this disease, or I have, the doctor told me I have this or whatever. And then the political, we experienced that here in the United States, here recently.
Yes.
People began to polarize.
Well, just all you got to do is look at our political system. Mm-hmm. You have right wingers and left wingers. Mm-hmm. They get all the news. They get everything. All there is highlighting of is that polarity. It's all about combat. It's about aggression of other and not understanding the other side.
and
it's like a hierarchy.
And when you have two 70-something-year-old white guys that are all about shareholder value, it doesn't matter if you're right or left, bro.
Up again.
and then economic. So we have physical, political, and then economic. So something changes, shift. Most fights in relationships are money driven.
Most of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, you pass off the responsibility and the knowingness within yourself, and then you project it onto a material thing and say that that's the key driver that makes you upset and deteriorates what is altogether a very immaterial relationship.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a retired person yesterday, and they're like, I'm happy. I have my retirement check. I'm good. My relationships are great with my family. My sons I'm happy with. My wife, we're happy. We're good. He's like, I don't have a desire. He goes, yeah, it'd be nice to have more money, but I'm not going to sacrifice any of those relationships for money. And then I heard a podcast of the day, and they were talking about a CEO of a rather large CEO, and the CEO is being honest. He's like, I finally made it here, but my 18-year-old son won't talk to me. So, you see what I'm saying? Whenever we look at this economic side of things, where we're almost worshiping money, the false god of greed, then it begins to leak. All of these begin to play amongst themselves. So, like a relationship that fights for money all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe you do. And if you have a dirt bag that is there and he's just hanging on the couch smoking weed all day long, watching Netflix and not working.
Mooching.
Mooching off of you, then maybe you need to get rid of him, ma'am. You know what I mean?
Or dude, depending on what your relationship is.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. But I mean, if that person is a veterinarian and they're happy serving animals and they're like, I'll never be an entrepreneur, a multimillionaire. I am totally happy just going in every day and helping animals. Great.
Yeah.
If you're happy making $50,000 a year, be happy.
Yeah. Don't let this external statistical material measure, which is what we call money, define what it is to be a human being.
Dude, people check their bank accounts and their stocks and all that stuff every day. And then when they do, there's this, and I want to help some people right now, because there's people that I was talking with somebody and they were like, I don't know if my account's overdrawn or if I have, enough money in my account or whatever. And so every day it's like, they don't even want to open their bank app on their phone because they have such anxiety over it. Because it's, I don't have control over this.
What are you talking about?
I don't have control over my future.
Yes, you do.
This is what.
Are you kidding? Yeah.
You see how this is playing out?
I have no responsibility over how my finances work. No one's swiping that damn debit card except for you. Mm-hmm. Because I get just annoyed. Finance is my background.
Right.
But I get annoyed with finance. Not at a function of anxiety. I get so sick and tired of like looking at a bank statement. Whatever. Is that really the definition? And I've actually found more joy knowing that I can be reasonable with my spending. Mm-hmm. I know what the limit is. Just define what that limit is and then don't go over that. Mm-hmm. And then I don't have to go there and have the anxiety that I do too much. Because do this, do that.
That becomes an underlying problem. It's like, okay, are you spending based off of your happiness? Have you fallen into the materialistic trap? And then from there, are you trying to project something that you're really not? Do you want, a Chanel or a Gucci bags, and so you're taking 80% of your salary and spending on something that's frivolous. So physical, political, economic, and spiritual distress.
Yeah.
So
he's the only guy that talks about it.
I know. Yeah.
All the other modern scientists refuse to look at the spiritual aspect. And he is not shy about it.
No one wants to, and we're not shy about it either. No one wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
It's too hard because they can't measure it. That's their problem. But he has the willingness, the gall to actually go at this and be like, let's discuss this because this is a very important thing. What you thought was unmeasurable is the thing that is really defining those thoughts and the state of that human being that causes them to create those actions.
Yes.
You got to look at it.
Mm-hmm. And so, with spiritual distress, with this anxious hope to the future, and he says, and when anticipations, utopias, and apocalyptic visions multiply. One thinks, for instance, and then I like the word. I don't know if it's chilastic or chiliastic.
Yeah.
But you looked it up. You have it right here. The doctrine that Jesus will reign for 1,000 years. So the millennial reign of Christ.
Every time I don't know a word, I got to go look it up.
Yeah. And so this was in the Christian area. And so, and you have right now, you're in my wheelhouse on this part, but, like there's a rapture of the church that most Christians believe that Jesus can come back at any moment.
Yeah.
In the twinkling of an eye, and we're all going to shoot up with him into heaven.
Oh, so let's fucking.
So like right now,
can we
in 2
torch
seconds.
This world? Let's just torch it.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. I can own as much shit. I can.
Well, that's why a lot of Christians are environmentalists.
Yeah, there we go.
Because Jesus could return at any moment. Imminent return, they say.
They'll fix it. Somebody else will clean the river.
Well, no, Jesus is going to. So what's going to happen is, we go up to heaven. This is Christian belief. We go up to heaven, and then from there, Jesus is going to come back and make the world like it was in the beginning of creation.
Yeah, and what was that? How'd that look? Fucking loincloths?
Adam and Eve, yeah.
Yeah, like tribulites or whatever they are, those little like cockroach things crawling around.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much, imbalance of nitrogen and other substances in the air you can't even breathe.
Which, if you want to understand...
Huge mosquitoes.
Side note, understanding Eve as being feminine energy, and then look that up.
And then they blame her.
Yeah, and then they blame her.
You're to blame for grabbing the apple.
Exactly.
Like, are you kidding?
That already, I'm out on that.
Yeah.
Whenever you start seeing any type of religious document that begins to be not egalitarian, you got to be out.
Bye.
Yeah. So, it's the woman's fault that she was beguiled by Eve. And so that created women can't vote. They're not smart enough. Women can't work.
Why has there never been a female pope? Why is it all dudes in the Vatican? Why are you not seeing these red flags? This hierarchical, chauvinistic, Nazi supporting religious, patriarchal doctrine.
Big penis rocket shooting into the sky.
That's all they care about. Let's just oh my gosh.
It's the same, yeah. And he gets into that too. So, and he's talking about, and you had to note here, Cold War. Mm-hmm. And so there was this great fear, even like nuclear shelters and stuff like that.
Don't we have a Cold War right now, though? We're literally on the brink of World War III constantly.
Mm-hmm. We're also on a Cold War with global stability.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Think about the news. The news is like the driver of this new Cold War. It's just divisive. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
We're repeating the same things. What shows me is that we're not learning. And
learn, teach, learn.
Yeah.
Raw talks about.
And we've had such a focus on this external material world.
But you don't have to learn if you just accept.
Yeah, have faith.
Just believe.
Have faith, believe.
Yeah.
You kidding me? What's the dog doing?
No, he was. She was in the closet, so I didn't know. But I think that's where the balls were. So I think she knows. I think they were in there
sniffing out the truth.
Yeah, the tennis balls and stuff. She's got.
Know what's valuable.
She's finding at them all.
Yeah.
A rather more pessimistic view would not be book. We're going back to the book. A rather more pessimistic view would not be unjustified either, since the gift of reason and critical reflection is not one of man's outstanding peculiarities.
So this is a great comment.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to reason, to be rational, to have self-awareness, but you completely ignore that trait. But if you look at a chimpanzee and you're like, we're just like them. What are you talking about? You are just completely pissing away the thing that makes you human being, not ape being, okay? That gives you a part of creation. It's the ability to have those creative thoughts.
You're also doing away with how many millions of years of evolution?
Oh my gosh.
And you want to put yourself back into that state? I mean, why are we going backwards here? The mass crushes out the insight and reflection that are still possible with the individual.
Can you please read that again?
The mass crushes out the insight. So the mass
of man.
Crushes out the insight and reflection that are still possible with the individual.
So if I just assimilate as part of the group, pass the responsibility off, say, I'm with them, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. I don't have to have any internal insight. I can let this dictator running the left side or the right side decide for me.
Yes.
I can have this church running the left side or the right side decide for me. I don't need to have insight. I don't need to be introspective. I don't need to have self-awareness. I'm going to associate with the group. I'm going to get rid of my sense of identity altogether. By saying I identify with that group, you eradicate your identity.
Yes.
The beautiful individual characteristics of you as a human being where nobody else is like you. But you choose to statistically just erase yourself from the planet.
Yeah, and I see this. There's a video on YouTube about a gentleman that had went up in front of a church. And so you have all these pastors standing around, and he's talking, and they are talking about delivering him from him being gay. So they're praying over him. They're putting their hands on him, laying their hands on him. They're all praying.
He should lay his hands on them.
Yeah. In more ways than one.
Yeah, in more ways than one. He'd be doing.
He'd find out probably 4 or 5 of them are.
Yeah. Oh, look at that, you freaking hypocrite. Yeah.
So they're laying their hands on him. They're praying. He's shaking uncontrollably. And Borat proved this because he did that. That
Borat's
funny thing when he went to the
great.
church and did that same thing. And they're getting him in the psychosomatic state. And then he's turning around and denying who he is as a person. This is a perfect example. They're opposing on his free will. They're putting pressure on him. There's thousands of people in this church all praying for him too. They got their hands out like this, praying for him to be delivered from this horrible disease and sin.
It's a disease.
We were talking with somebody earlier, and they were saying there was some country, I don't remember which one, where it's illegal to be gay.
Oh yeah, it was
Nigeria. I don't know.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Were we talking about in Africa? Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhere in Africa. Yeah. They can put that in the notes, but somebody can let us know that. But this is a perfect example of the masses taking your individuality away.
Stripping it from you. Stripping away everything that you choose to be. Yes, I have a sex. I am male or female by chromosome. But if I have a gender and that's a choice that I want to make, that's not for a church or some mass group to decide that I can't be that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like almost saying get in your car and you can only drive where we're going to tell you to drive. But we'll tell you how to breathe.
Think how stupid this is. Yeah, we'll tell you how to breathe. Yeah.
Man.
Think how stupid this is. Well, I mean, there's cults and gurus that do that. Well, when you come into our place, you breathe this way.
Of course
you close your mouth and only breathe through your nose, and this is how we do it. So then now everybody knows, okay, when we walk into this little temple, we can only breathe through our nose.
I'm going to throw an elbow into that guy's nose.
So now you have a church. So you have all these people around. So if you have 2,000 people in a church, let's say. Sure. I would say probably a good percentage of them are, because they don't believe in premarital sex, but a good percentage are probably going against that rule and having premarital sex. A good percentage of them are lusting after, let's say they're a married couple, because that's what they believe. So there's
lusting after the neighbor.
Lusting after their neighbor or whatever, and they're going against that. But they're all like, we're good.
We're great.
But this guy,
we're perfect. This guy's a screw up.
He likes other men.
He's a screw up because
his sexual preference is.
He's the screw up because he made a choice and stuck to that choice. And you're trying to change him because he's the only person that really figured out who he was.
He took the time to figure out. Yeah, it's a sexual preference, but at the end of the day, and we've highlighted it, in our society, but where it's just a sexual preference. We need to get past this whole labeling and understand people.
Who gives a shit?
People should be free to be and do whatever they want to do as long as it's not harming another human being.
That's precisely correct. Who gives a shit?
Other than that, it doesn't matter.
Why do you care how that person is classified through their own choice? You only care how they're classified because you're the one classifying them.
It's fear.
Yeah.
It's mass hysteria, mass fear.
Yeah, you're scared because you don't know about yourself.
It's like we have to build a wall with Mexico. Yeah. It's the same
that's
thing.
What I said, this is the Cold War all over again. It's East and West Berlin, man.
Yes, yeah.
Or even a metaphysical one. Remember the Iron Curtain?
Yes.
Come on, this is the line of where communism stops.
We even call them illegal aliens.
What do you mean aliens? They're human beings.
From this planet. We're all the same.
Just because you put a border up that makes them illegal?
Who put the border up?
White man. White man did.
It's so silly. So we at Higher Density Living want to make sure that you understand that you are an individual. Yeah, we have a collective consciousness.
Sure.
and there's unity in that. But the more that you understand who you are and the more self-aware you are, the more you're going to see who you are as an individual, and then the more you're going to align with creation. The more you align with creation, the more unity we have in that diversity.
Correct.
Because you're totally different than I am. I mean, we're two different people. I mean, if people set us down and had a conversation with you and me,
yeah,
we're I wouldn't say we're opposite, but
no, but some will say because we're here on this podcast,
yeah,
we're the same person.
I like weightlifting. You like rock climbing. I have no desire to walk
lift
over
the rocks up. I'm the one that walks on top of them.
But I could probably lift more weight than you,
sure,
because I do it all the time.
Yeah,
but I could not even come close to what you're doing because my fat ass couldn't go up the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's awesome. I love that you rock climb, and you tell me like things.
And
like
I love
earlier,
that your biceps are ridiculously huge.
Not as big as your 70-year-old dad.
Yeah, I know. No, but seriously.
Alex's dad's jacked.
Yeah, I don't get that. It's an anomaly, that man.
So, and then he goes in and says this, and I'm pretty sure we have to close out.
Yeah, we'll close out after this quote.
We're going to have a series for the undiscovered self. Rational argument can be conducted with some prospect of success only so long as the emotionality of a given situation does not exceed a certain critical degree.
Okay, how many times have we all experienced that at like a family dinner? Someone brings up politics. They can't rationally talk about it because there's too much of an emotional charge that people get, and then it throws their rationale out the window.
Well, I'm not going to get specific, but your family is a perfect example.
They're a great example.
Your family has both sides.
They're a great example.
Which I think a lot of American families are that way.
Sure.
Like I'm fixing to experience this when I'm going back home this week, and so I have different views. So, my family's the same way, but if it let loose, I mean, you're probably the equalizer, but if it probably bring polarity to it, but if it let loose, it could be pretty chaotic when all your family's together.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
If politics get mentioned.
And what he's saying is that there is a threshold. There's a point when you begin to spiral so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Ausertung in German. And when it gets there, it's just like it's gotten so badly out of control, it's almost impossible to get back from it until the people actually split themselves apart,
right,
and take the time to drop that emotional charge.
Eric Weinstein, that great mathematician.
Weinstein.
He just tweeted and he talked about this. He on his podcast, he had an ultra-conservative person that was very articulate and very engaging. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I am so glad I had a conversation with him. Now, here's two people with opposing political views.
Sure.
And they had a conversation and developed, through that conversation and being loving towards each other, developed mutual respect, even in the diversity. That's
how knowledge and learning works.
Mm.
You have to be open and you have to have a rational discussion. If you don't let the emotions get in the way, and it's not saying don't be emotional. Have the emotion, but articulate it.
I want to understand you.
Yeah, help me understand how you get to that point of that feeling.
Because you know what? I may be wrong.
Correct. And I'm not saying I'm right, but help me get there. I want to, let me empathize. Let me understand.
Dude, I've been so wrong more than I've been right.
Yeah.
Especially in my political views. It's like as I've gotten older, I've changed so dramatically from when I was in my 20s.
From when I first met you, you are two totally different people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, on that account, if you don't want society telling you what you should drive and you want to make the choice for yourself or what you should buy, you go to Quality Mazda of Albuquerque.
Yes.
And you can find yourself a nice ride under your choice, your time, and your cash profile.
Yeah, and we also want to thank Tartle.co. If you want to get paid for your data, if you want to help out the world, if you want to help out climate stability, human rights, government, corporate transparency.
And yourself.
Sign up at Tartle.co, start getting paid for your data, and also help out this globe. And then I want to mention this. We have a lot of people that listen to the episode, and we keep growing every month, which I'm excited about that. But we really, really would appreciate if you would go to Apple. If you listen to this through Apple and you're listening right now, can you take 15 seconds? Because Apple's algorithm goes by not how many downloads you've downloaded on the episode, but it goes by reviews.
Yeah. It's actually the interaction of that individual with the podcast.
Yeah, because
itself.
that's how it's saying. If we get enough 5-star reviews and trust this, then in the category spirituality, it will put higher density living, and then it gives us the ability to serve others.
Well, not even it's 5. Be critical. Give us 3. Give us 1.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
I don't really care. I just want people to interact.
Yeah, we want people to interact. So I encourage people to do that. If you listen through Apple Podcasts, please go on and leave us a review. We'd love to hear it, and we'll be going through the reviews and giving people shout outs on those.
Yeah. Cool deal.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.